In this chapter, we are going to talk about creating variables to use in our node article template. We're going to go into template.php and create a new function, our preprocess node. We're going to do a check to see if we are working with an article and create new variables. And then we're going to open up our node article TPL file, and we're going to print those there. If you take a look at the site we've been working on, the area where the date is does not quite match our designer's comp. Take a look at our designer's comp. We have this pretty little gray area with the date. So we need to actually take the value that's stored in the database and create 3 separate variables, one for the April, one for the 4th, and one for the year as well. So in order to do that, we are going to go into our template.php file. And as you can see, we have already created a 960 robots preprocess page function. And that gets called once at the very top level. But we actually need to work on variables that are going to be passed to the node template. So we need to create a new function. We are going to type in 960 robots underscore preprocess underscore node. And every variable we create here will get sent to the node TPL file. Now, the first thing I do when I create a new template is I actually print to the screen all available variables. This is a personal decision to kind of get me going to see what I have to work with. The other thing is we'll have to clear our caches because we have a new function. So I'm going to add in my KPR, save it, go back to my site, click on my performance shortcut that I've created, clear my caches so that that new function gets registered. And when I go back, I should be able to see the variables available to us. First things I want to look at is we have the node type of article. We're going to make sure that when we work with our function, we are only looking for content and creating variables for that so we can pass them specifically to our article node template. The other things I want to look for is actually the node object itself. So we're going to scroll down, and here we go is our node object. If I click to expand that, you'll see recursion. That means there's a lot of information in there, but once I change my KPR, we'll have better access to what's in there. So my next step is going to be going back in to my function, and we're going to do an if statement. We are going to check to make sure that we're only working with article content type. So if variables type equals article, then we can actually assign, we're going to say $node equals $variables node. And this is just a quick little syntax so that we can more easily work with the node object. It makes it a little bit shorter for typing. And then we can say, show me everything available in the node, because remember, we're looking for that date. So I can go ahead and I can delete my top one. And now we're saying for all articles, please print out what's in the node object. So we'll go back and refresh. And we should see 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we only have 4 printouts because on this page, although we're displaying 5 nodes, one of them is not an article. So let's look at the first one. And we are now printing out the node itself. And here is our created date. The created date is in the timestamp format. So we need to take that and pass it to a function to actually get the pretty words for April or May. But I'm very excited that we have found that created date. So let's go back to our code. The next thing we are going to do is create new variables. So to get the day, we are going to use a Drupal function called formatDate. Now, if there's any time a function you don't know what you need to pass to it, I always recommend going to the API reference. That's at api.drupal.org. And you can go ahead and you can paste it in, and it will tell you what parameters. So for Drupal 7, format date, takes the timestamp, which we just saw in our node object, the type of date. So you can use one of the date formatters that comes with Drupal. Optionally, for type, you can actually put in the word custom and then specify using the PHP syntax for what the day of the week is or the month. So that's actually what we are going to do. So let's go back to our code. So the first parameter is the timestamp. That was node created. The second parameter is what kind of date, and we want custom. And the third parameter we are going to pass it is what does it actually look like? And that's going to be a J. Now I know that it's a J because all that information is on php.net. Now we can take this exact same pattern and we can repeat that for the following ones. For month, we're going to do a capital M, and for year, a capital Y. Okay, so now we have our 3 different variables utilizing the J, the M, and the Y. Now I want to confirm this is actually what our designer wanted before we go any further. So I'm coming back to our mock-up from the designer, and we've got APR, the number 4, and then the full year. If we go back to our api.drupal.org site, we actually have the link out for what those codes are. So let's take a look. If we scroll down, there's a great big table that tells you all of the little keys here. And here's our J, and that does give us 1 to 31 without deleting zeros. Perfect. For month, we chose a capital M, and that gives us the textual format in the 3-letter code for the month. And our capital Y will give us the 4-digit years. I think we picked the right ones. So now our next step is to print them so that they will display for us. We've already got the variables, but something might be wrong. How do I get actually the submitted day variable into our node article template? I actually missed a step here. Did anyone catch that? For anything to be passed actually to the TPL, it needs to be part of the variables array. So I need to change what I've got here to say variables and then submitted day inside that. So I'm just going to copy that and make those changes. This is actually a really common mistake. You get so excited about creating your variables, you forget the syntax to actually pass them in to the template so that they're there. Okay, so that should work now. I'm going to just comment out my KPR node. I don't think we're going to need that anymore. And I'm going to open up my node -- article template. And you can see right now they are printing just the date, but we needed to look totally different. So I actually want to go take a look at what our designer has given us. So I'm just going to open up Firebug and we'll take a look at how this is being created and what that markup is that we need to replicate. So it looks like we have our title, our post info, and then our div class content. And inside that, we're creating a date block where each of the pieces of the dates are surrounded by a span. I think we can totally accomplish that. Let's go back to our code, and here's actually our content. Excellent. So I'm going to remove the current date because we're no longer using that. Come in to our content, and we're going to create our div class equals date block. And let's just make sure I got that class correct. Awesome. And now we can start putting in all of our spans. Okay, and the first one has a class of month. The second one has a class of day. And the third one has a class of year. So now that we've got our markup, we need to go ahead and print our variables. So opening PHP tag, since we're printing just the text here, we can go ahead and type submitted month and our closing PHP tag. The thing you'll notice that I'm doing is I am printing $submitted month. But in our templates, we actually called it variables and then submitted month. That's because Drupal needs to collect all of the variables to pass to the template in one array. And by the time it makes it to the template, it'll split them up so that you can utilize them just by the word itself. So I'm going to copy the pattern that I used for the first one, type that in there, and that's going to be the day. And the same thing inside the year span, we'll change that. Excellent. So now the markup that I just typed should match the markup that the designer gave us when they first gave us the file. So let's go take a look at our site. I'm going to hit refresh. Excellent. We now have our date being displayed in the exact same way the designer had the dates displayed. So when we go into content, date block, we'll see our spans that match exactly what the designer had intended in their HTML rendering. To recap, we created a new function in template.php, and this was a preprocessed node function. And in that, we did a check to say, if we are looking at a node that is an article, so our code does not need to be run on every node in the system, but just on articles. And if we are looking at an article, we then create 3 different variables. Another thing that we did is this a little syntax here where we said $node equals variables node. That's something you'll see a lot written by Drupal developers and Drupal themers because it makes the syntax in writing things a lot shorter. So when we are passing variables from that node object around to create other variables, like for example, the node created, it's a lot shorter for us to type. So we go ahead, we create 3 variables, all from that node created date. We use that format date function, which takes the Unix timestamp format, and we tell it that we want to print specifically just the day or just the month or just the year. We pass each of those to their own variable in the variables array. And when we go into our node article template, we can go ahead and print those in our new markup to get our desired results. And so that's how you create new variables for your node templates.